dropping
announcement.
3,
They were
and then they're
like,
dropping 1 and 2.
please
Yeah.
play 3 and then play 1 and 2 because we were doing a lot of cocaine in the 80s.
Hello and welcome to another Dead Pixel. I'm your host, Joe, and with me, the man who was so inspired to find his own Shadow of the Erd Tree, freshly back from his vacation in the woods, Nick. How you doing, Nick?
I'm doing good. I did find an Erd tree, and I killed a man that was sitting under it. So I think that I beat the new Elden Ring expansion, but I might also.
Or I guess if you kill the person who gives you the quest and then kills the quest line, do you technically win?
Yeah, he was a weird looking dude, so I just assumed he was from. I thought it was some ARG thing, and I thought he wasn't a real person. So anyway, that's
so
not
it's okay to
true.
cause murder if you don't think they're a real person.
Exactly, exactly. That's not true. That's all. That was a joke that I got out of hand. Yeah, I went and saw some trees in forest out in California. Saw the sequoias. They're very big. They're nice.
Did you see the general?
I did see. There are two generals.
Okay.
I saw General Grant first. That is a little bit smaller, and then I saw General Sherman, which is supposed to be the biggest tree in the world.
I saw Sherman a handful of years ago, and that was a pain in the butt to get to. Just like we had just driven from Reno. No, that's right. We went to Reno, Santa Cruz. So we went down Highway 1, the coastline, which was foggy as crap, and then cut across the width of the state. Got to see the tree at before sundown, and then drove back to the one of the worst hotels I've ever been to. So, but that tree was pretty dope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a big, beautiful dang tree. Yeah. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. I didn't kill anyone at it.
Not that you're admitting to.
Not that I
all right, good.
admitting to. Yeah. So, but I'm glad to be back among civilization. Had terrible reception out there for a lot of the time.
I resisted the urge to send you stupid bear photos every day. I was just like,
I know you failed in that urge.
I sent a handful.
like once. Those are pretty good. What's her name? I've never just even seen Superstar. Is that what it's called? Where she's making out with the tree. You sent me that
I
one.
literally just under my text I search gift search. I'm like bear hugger or something like that. And that was one of the first things that came, or tree hugger, and then that's what came under.
Yeah,
I think it was.
That's pretty classic with her. I forget that comedic actress's name, where she's making out with the tree. It's pretty freaking good. Yeah.
All right. Well, no, it's good to have you back. And so for everyone else who's super lost and confused, we're Another Dead Pixel, and we're a podcast about video games, news, anime, entertainment, life, and a little bit of everything in between. And this is the in-between part right now we're talking about, because it has been a couple weeks since we had our last
real episode,
current podcast. So and yes, so I'm Joe, and with me is Nick, and we are just going to jump into a little old news now since we last recorded the Nintendo Direct. We're just going to skim over. By now you probably already know about it. We wanted to touch on a few things that we thought we were interested in, and maybe that you guys would be as well. All right, you want to take off with what you feel first? You want to talk about?
Yeah. First, I just want to say sorry that we're a little bit late. I had internet issues. I didn't tell you about this, but this is a fun story. So I had internet problems. Called the thing. They were like, "Hey, reset your router." I did exactly the way they told me to, and they're like, "Okay, we got to bring a technician out." So they brought a technician out, and this guy. I don't know why, but for some reason I decided to just watch what he was doing, and he started talking to me about it, and he was basically like, so the cable that runs through the building has ingress in it. I don't really know what ingress really means, but basically it's causing spikes in the signal. And so when you cause spikes in the signal, then they'll shut your internet off because they don't want that data to be leaking or whatever. So he was like, so the cable that's running through the building is has ingress and it's causing spikes, and so we have to make sure, so we have to check on these other cables and see if they're causing it. But if this cable, um, if it's not something else that's causing it, then he was like, basically, I know this cable is causing it, but if something else isn't causing it more, and we can't bring it down, then basically he was like the he was like your apartment complex isn't going to want to change the cable because it's running through the middle of the building. Uh, they're not going to want to put any cables on the outside. So, and he kind of just left it at that. And I was like, so you're just saying I won't be able to have internet because like you guys are going to keep shutting it off, and my apartment isn't going to replace it. And he was like, well, yeah, kind of. So, long story short, I have two cable outlets, and he shut off one of them just in case. So I'm down to one, and he fixed it so it has less ingress. So anyway, I don't know what's going to happen, Joe, but that's why my internet was shut off when we were about to do our freaking podcast on Thursday, and then again on Friday. So that is just to say, sorry that we're late, guys. Try to get this out as soon as possible. Anyway, on with the show. Nintendo Direct. So first up, we got this here Zelda game. Yeah,
Legend of Link, right?
The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom is what the game is actually called. We could put a subtitle in here, or a parentheses, Legend of Actually Zelda. Anyway, so this is a pretty cool little game, I guess. It looks sort of in the vein of that Link's Awakening remake they made a couple years ago. It's sort of that style. I don't think it actually even looks that nice. To be honest, it is a little
I'm
bit.
not a fan of this art style, to be honest. I mean, it's not a bad art style. But it is a choice, and I feel, I mean, what it does is it's an artistic style that will maintain its look, and it easily computes to an aging Switch. Is what I feel. Is
Uh,
they can't really do too much else. They can't really make it super nice because if they do, the Switch will tank. So I think they're just doing really good with what they got.
yeah, and this people have been talking about a Zelda with Zelda as the actual protagonist for years. I don't even know how long. It's been a serious kind of request. So to me, this is like them basically doing two things. First of all, satisfying that slightly, but I think also testing the waters and seeing, okay, you guys wanted one with Zelda as the protagonist. Here you go. If you don't buy it, then you're not going to get any more. So if you really wanted that, then whether you like this game or not, you should probably buy it. But that's just kind of me reading the tea leaves. But anyway, so I don't really know too much about this game. It looks like it might be pretty good if it's got the Zelda name in it at all. Nintendo's going to probably try a little bit. Obviously, it's not going to be anything like Tears of the Kingdom or anything like that, like a main line, but it looks like it'll be a pretty good foot forward in that
Yeah,
vein.
the big standout part of this game is the fact that the combat or the gameplay itself is all based on looks like cloning items in the world. So stack you can clone boxes, stack them to overcome like hurdles, literally like to get over walls or something like that. You can I think they showed cloning like a tree to block like a steam vent. So blocking the path so you can walk forward. So it's not traditional combat essentially. So it's probably going to be better than that Princess Peach game because that was a little too simplistic. And so this is I think this will be a little more on the puzzle side, like you're just trying to think about workarounds. And I think a lot of fans will appreciate that, but maybe it won't necessarily scratch that itch they wanted for to have like a an action facing heroine, in this case, because she's always the damsel, and now she gets to be the hero, but she doesn't get to be the action hero that or heroine in this case that most people wanted. So
Yeah,
we'll see. As a Nintendo game, I'm pretty sure it'll do well. It'll look good,
yeah.
and it'll play fine.
It'll be
So
competent. I think also there's more there's more girls that are gaming now than ever before, and I think it's just going to continue to grow. So I'm kind of wondering if they're hedging their bets a little bit along that, along with the the Peach thing, where they're maybe getting in you know games with girls as the protagonist, and also maybe aimed at a little bit younger audiences to kind of guide those audiences into Nintendo, products where they're, readily able to kind of cater to that audience. I think more than like Xbox or Sony really can, at least right now. Anyway, this is another
yeah,
thought that I had.
making it puzzle oriented is also a safer bet for those who cannot have the action timing needed. So it makes it easier for younger children who aren't as coordinated necessarily, or who can take their time. Right now, it's currently slated, according to what was it, IGN's page was the end of September.
Yeah,
So September 26th, 2024. So that's not that far away, and it'll be interesting to see when it comes out.
yeah, it is really right there. So next up, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, finally announced after, gosh, it's been like what, a decade. It got scrapped once, at least that we know of, maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah,
And so gameplay revealed. I uh, looking at some of the screenshots and some of the gameplay at first, I was like, this kind of looks a little too good for the Switch. After seeing it on a bigger screen, because I was watching on my phone, after seeing it on a bigger screen, I was like, okay, this might actually be able to play on the Switch one. But as good as it looks, and the window being sometime in 2025 makes me think that this is a dual release, if not at least a Switch 2 release. I think it's going to be at least it's a dual release, because I don't think they'd be announcing it right now. I think they would announce it along with the Switch 2, whenever that actually does get announced. But this looks like a game that's going to be on both systems, if I had to guess, especially with the 2025 release date that is very cryptic. I think they probably know when this is coming out, but they may not know when the Switch 2 is coming out, and they want to probably time those things together. But otherwise, I mean, it looks pretty good. Well, I shouldn't say it looks pretty good. It looks a little simple to me. I don't know if they're holding some things back for this first trailer, but it looks like not a lot is going on in some of the shooting. Um, this is sort of difficult terrain, I think, for Nintendo, because when you have like Call of Duty and Apex Legends and Fortnite and freaking every other console and PC, putting their best foot forward on shooters, and then you have this on the Switch, there's not a lot of flash that's being displayed here to me. So I was a little bit underwhelmed. It looks like it might have some decent puzzles and stuff like that, but it is finally here. People finally getting what they're asking for, I guess.
so I understand what you mean by feeling it's underwhelming. I honestly think it is in the correct vein, and it meets expectations for what people of the Metroid Prime like franchise, who fans of like, would expect. And because Metroid Prime isn't this Call of Duty run and gun spectacle. It is a first person shooter, yes, but it is still a different kind of gameplay.
It's like a
From
puzzle type. There's a lot more puzzles and action, sort of. I don't know, Zelda-ish things in it, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the Metroid part of Metroidvania. I mean, there is coming back to going back and forth to locations, stuff like that. So it's one of those things that, coming from like the outside looking in and being like, yeah, when you compare it to everything else on the market, this isn't that great. But when you're in the mindset of this is the franchise, this is the next step, and it's moving in the right direction, kind of like how I feel for Breath of the Wild, because like Breath of the Wild, though it did a few innovative things, I feel like overall it failed on a lot of aspects compared to other open world things. But as far as a Legend of Zelda game, that was most definitely the peak of that franchise up until that point. But when you compare it to everything else, that's where I personally was like let down. And so I feel like you're going through the same thing, but with Metroid now. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it'll be fine. I think the fans who've been waiting, I think this is what they are expecting. I remember they showed the bad guy, which I think was the ending to 3 or 2 or something. They hinted at the bad guy before in one of the other ones. It's been forever since I played them. I think I even have like the remake or have them on multiple on like one disc somewhere or something like that. And I haven't touched the games in forever. So if they're smart, they're going to do a re-release on Switch. They'll revamp or remaster or something like that the old games and port them over. Really double in, like cash in on that whole franchise. But yeah, without a doubt, this has to be a Switch 2 release. You need a strong, heavy hitter. It's still too early for a Legend of Zelda, in my opinion. You might be able to get a proper Mario game to come out around the same time. Maybe not, like the last Mario. It wasn't day one, but it was within year one. So,
Yeah. When
but
was
yeah,
that? When was Mario Odyssey? That was the last one, right?
uh, yeah, I don't remember. I thought it was late
2019?
later that same year, wasn't it?
In
Later the launch
2017?
year. So,
Was it?
um,
Okay.
I
I feel like it was
want to say
longer.
yes.
I feel like it was a little while. I feel like it was like, okay, we got Breath of the Wild and we have Mario Rabbids and we have like one or two other games, and that was kind of it for like a while, for at
Dude,
least a
mine's
year.
literally on the back shelf, still sealed. So I can't talk anything about it
You
really.
have Odyssey, or is that
uh,
you ever talking about?
I have Odyssey on the back
Uh,
shelf, just still sealed. I
I
actually ended up
I
I forgot what I traded in for, but like I was on vacation or I was stuck in the States for a while, and I had bought some other stuff, and then I ended up just like, oh, that's it. It was Breath of the Wild. I played and beat
mm,
Breath of the Wild completely. I did everything I could in that game, except the only thing I didn't do was collect all the horses or the Korok seeds. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this game, and I'm literally done with this game. So I didn't want to touch it ever again. Got rid of it and put that towards Odyssey.
okay.
I actually so
Well, anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that was like, I guess it was 2018 then, maybe. I don't know, but it's been a very long time since a proper true blue Mario, brand new Mario game. So, yeah, it would be about time for another one.
October 2017, Mario Odyssey.
Dang, I thought it was like 2019. Oh well. Um, so so yeah, it's been just as long as the Switch has been out. Crazy that there was only one Mario on the Switch. So then, yeah, there's definitely a Mario that's sitting there for the Switch too. Probably simultaneous release as well. Um, maybe not though, but it just depends. But I would imagine that and Prime 4 coming out for the Switch 2. That's a pretty good. I mean, as Nintendo launch lineups go, that's pretty dang good. As really any console lineups go, that's launch lineups go, that's really good. Most of the time, these consoles launch with you know just nothing, hardly, maybe one game. So that's pretty. That would be pretty good. But anyway, so that looks like where they're headed with Prime 4. We'll see what ends up happening with it. For this Nintendo Direct, a couple other interesting things. Mario and Luigi Brothership is coming to the Nintendo Switch. Um, so I don't know what this was originally on. Uh,
So this is a brand new but game. So the Mario and Luigi series has been around since I want to say the Game Boy Advance, and those have always been really awesome RPGs.
okay,
They're kind of gameplay wise spiritual successors to Super Mario RPG,
right.
and they do the active combat system where it's turn based, but if you time your attacks well, you get bonus attack damage. If you during um, during defense portions, you can actually, nullify or at least minimize damage based on your timing, things like that. The later games were, I mean, they were really well written. I remember though the team who did these, they were shut down a while ago, and then I thought they kind of brought them back, but I don't think it's the same team that's doing this. But I remember just those games were always pretty funny, and they weren't the most in-depth RPG type games, but they were a great way to kill time and just super enjoyable. So I'm I'm always happy to see another one of these. Whether or not I'll get around to playing it, that's a different story. But
Yeah.
these games are always pretty solid.
Yeah, I was kind of confused
And this
because
one's
it
supposed to be coming out in November, at the beginning of November, I believe.
right. I was just confused by this article because it said in November 7th because it says jumping to Nintendo Switch. So I thought it might be a remake coming over, but yeah, it looks like a new game. Looks cool. Looks cool. So if you're into that, then you can jump on into the Brothership if you want. And then there was one more thing, Joe, that you are a little more interested in. Tell us about Dragon Quest 3.
Oh well, I mean, so the whole Dragon Quest / Dragon Warrior series it's a great, it was one of those great old franchises that like not a lot of people knew about, and then it's like for me it's a nostalgia kick because it's like one of the first RPGs I ever got my hands on. Uh, I
Yeah.
was pretty young at the time, but at the same time, it was just it was it was that right kind of high fantasy. Had really good artwork, and you're just like it was just cool as hell as a kid. So I'm really happy that they're coming out making three, and doing the HD 2D remake. I'm like, some people are getting bored of these, this style, but I think it suits it really well. And kind of talking about what I mentioned before, I think before we started recording about how you don't need to make everything into the brand new 3D art look. Like I'm much happier that they're doing this with Dragon Quest 3 than they're doing with like the Legend of Zelda, that Echoes of Wisdom, where they're
Uh,
making it into that like the chibi, like
the
cutesy block characters.
tilt shifted type of yeah stuff.
So yeah, so but the HD 2D remakes being the whole artwork, sprite work shift, 2D shift, like that works really well for old RPGs. I think it's very nostalgic. It stays true to form to kind of how it originally was made, but it makes it nice and fresh. Um, so I'm actually really kind of happy about this. And then, like it's kind of neat. They're like, oh, you're making three. All right, well, that's nice. Kind of wish you'd have the rest of the series. And then they quickly afterwards mention, oh yeah, and we're doing 1 and 2, and that's going to be a bundle. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. That's the way to do it. You should have just made a whole one. It's too much value just to have all three in one. I understand you got to milk us for what we're worth, but you're not doing the dirtbag move of having all three separate. So there's a fine middle ground there.
Yeah, I think they know that these games are a little bit of a niche, purchase for certain people. So they're gonna give you three, and then they're gonna give you. I don't know why. I don't really understand the bundling of 1 and 2 together. But other than those are the sequel to 3, which I was
Well,
very
yes, but
confused by.
they're completing the
Trilogy.
Edric trilogy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they
So
kind of
that's
mentioned
the
that.
reason.
I know, but I
So
mean,
that's the
yeah,
reason why it's 1 through 3. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so anyway, then I guess the other part just has to do with them being the sequel. So yeah, but that is cool. That is they probably know that this is a little bit of a niche thing, so they kind of want to give you the best way to enjoy that, while also still making some money off of it too. But yeah, I'm glad that you're kind of excited for this. Are you gonna go back and play any of it, or are you just gonna enjoy it from afar?
I really would rather have them play it on a different system. I just don't use my Switch for like that much.
Yeah.
If they drop it on the PC, I'd be more than happy to pick it up there. That's the thing. It's just, but also, I'm curious. I'm really curious what kind of modern conveniences that they're going to throw in with it, because
Oh,
they can't make it 1-to-1 to that old grindy
no.
style of old JRPG, right? So I'm really interested to see what kind of new modern like twist they put on.
Well,
So we'll see.
if you end up being able to play it on PC, it'll be 4K and 240 frames per second. So you might want to wait until somebody emulates it, hacks it over straight out of the PC. But yeah, hopefully that won't happen. Of course, that's all that I cared about for the Nintendo Direct. There's a bunch of other little tiny things that we could mention and talk about. But was there anything else that you wanted to mention specifically, Joe?
No, I thought they were doing some of the right moves here. Like they're doing they're remaking Luigi's Mansion 2. I mean,
Right.
the Luigi Mansion games are pretty family friendly, pretty easygoing. So I thought that was kind of neat. Uh, I thought it was kind of funny that they're doing a Hello Kitty game, like Island Adventure. So I was like, you know what? That's kind of awesome. Yeah. I forget uh, there was a couple neat, like interesting gameplay ones. The one of the Familia or something. Gotta look to scroll down. The uh, Farmagia.
For
So
Migia,
that one was like
yeah.
a weird farming sim mixed with monster, like a Pokemon esque or like or Monster Rancher kind of gameplay, and I was like, that's kind of unique. They're doing something different. Uh, you're kind of hitting on that pal world, like using uh monsters to help you out. It looks like with the farming, but also you can hunt in a pack. Literally, like they're showing like different packs of animals, or to help take down a bigger creature. I'm like, that's kind of cool. Um, so I'm glad to see different things out there, because even if it doesn't necessarily hit big, uh, it might spark an idea with someone else to better utilize that kind of formula. Um, you know they there are a few things on here that like just it was just neat that they're bringing out, but you had some of the new stuff. You got like Stray or porting over, like they're porting over Stray. I'm like, you know what? If you only own the Switch, you should be at least be able to experience Stray. 'Cause Stray was a fun game. Uh,
She was all right.
for me,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy they're bringing over Marvel vs. Capcom collection, because you and I played the crap out of those for the PS3 back in the day.
Yeah.
I bought my PS3 was nothing but a fighting game, like old school fighting game box, and
We
I
need
even bought the
to.
little fighting sticks for you and I to play with, just because I bought it for myself, and I'm like, okay, I have to buy one so when you come over, you use it, because therefore, you
Equal
can't say
footing.
I'm having an unfair advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. We ought to pick a fighting game and fire that up online or something like that at some point. I have Street Fighter 6. I guess I don't know. I'd be okay. I'd be okay with doing it with any of those. But those are fun times. I'm glad that they're bringing it over to the Switch, among other things.
Yeah, I mean, they're remaking the Romancing Saga 2, I believe. So
Saga.
I honestly don't remember the Romancing Saga too much. There was,
Isn't it like based off Romance of the Three Kingdoms or something, or is that different?
no,
Okay.
that's different. So there was Romancing Saga and Saga Frontier. I was a Saga Frontier fan.
Huh.
And so that's why I didn't really get into the Romancing Saga story. So that was one of the things that you only had so much money as a kid,
The Great
and when
Schism. The Great
you're
Romancing
putting your
Schism.
money into a big RPG. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Romance took me out of it. No, I actually just didn't like. So it was one of those things that I happened to pick Saga Frontier because it had like 7 or 8 different playable characters, and you picked I think it was 3 of them in your party, and everybody's story intertwined at one point. So you'd start out playing each individual, and then your party members would meet up. But then, depending on who you played as, everyone else would start to like. You'd realize no matter what category you'd play, people would meet up at one point or another. So
Yeah.
that was a really cool like replayability factor. But as far as Romancing Saga goes, it was just that's a game that's not in my wheelhouse. Um, but at the same time, I know a lot of my other friends dug it pretty much, and so I was like, all right, cool. At least someone out there is going to be super happy for that. And speaking of like super happy, like those who still have the Nintendo online memberships, they're going to get they're going to get Link's Four Swords. They're going to Link to the Past. They're going to get um, the Metroid Zero Mission, which is the retelling of Metroid. That was the Game Boy Advance remake of Metroid 1, and then there was the uh Turok, which I didn't care about, but then there's like Perfect Dark. I'm like, oh, that's pretty well timed considering the fact they just announced that new Perfect Dark game in the works. Um, just to hit up on the the zeitgeist as well, free advertising. But yeah, I mean, as overall, this wasn't a bad direct. I felt there was a few things in there that just a lot of it wasn't for me. Um, I mean, Among Us coming to yet another thing. I'm surprised it took it this long to get Among Us on there, but
That is kind of
uh,
wild. I mean, it's just like we're all just waiting for the Switch 2 to drop. I mean, it's interesting that they have this much stuff, but it's also kind of like, come on, guys, just get the Switch 2 out there. We know it's coming. We know that all the good stuff is going to be on that. We know. I mean, this is a freaking 7 going on, 8-year-old system. This is
well, that's why they're bringing out old stuff like Metal Slug. Metal Slug's awesome for anyone who hadn't played Metal Slug, which is a lot of the kids who have a Switch. But at the same, and it can easily be played on the Switch, right?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just them
I'm sh-
milking the system out for yet another year.
I know they just. I don't think they really want to do this. I think they probably ran into some sort of issues and stuff because of. Anyway, I don't want to get all into all that Bloomberg stuff, but yeah, okay. So that's gonna be it for the direct, I guess. Unless you wanted to have anything else to say about it.
Nope, that is it.
Okay, there's a couple other small things we can kind of run through here. Final Fantasy 14 um, had a new expansion, and one of the executives that was working on that came out and kind of apologized for the issues that they're having. Basically saying they're on it, they're gonna have a hot fix. Probably, I think he said they're probably gonna have a hot fix, but they definitely have issues to fix, and they're going to get those fixed as fast as possible. So if you're into Final Fantasy 14, then that's affecting you. Well, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't
Um,
even realize there was a new expansion for that game. I just remember during pandemic when they had the last expansion, they were like, "Hey guys, we're actually going to stop the sale of our game
I
altogether
remember
because we
that.
can't meet server demands."
Yeah,
And I'm like, "That is a bold move. Like, good for you for making the right decision." But like, what company would be like, "No, we're going to stop selling our product to you."
yeah.
Um,
I think,
and
I
just
think, I think in that one too, they started kicking people who were idle because you couldn't get on because so people were just once they got on, they were just staying on and they were going to bed or whatever so they could get up and play or whatever and not have to sign back in and then so they started kicking people, which I was like, okay, that's probably the right move if people are just gonna hog the server. So yeah, a lot of wild stuff's always going on for Final Fantasy 14. People just love their Final Fantasy, I guess.
yeah. All right, what else you got?
Next thing, so remember all those events that Nintendo had to cancel because of threats that were being issued to the event and people at the event? Well, there's a 27-year-old man, and they say his name in the article. You can look it up if you want to. Um, he's a Japanese guy, and he has been sentenced to a year in prison for he confessed to being the one who was making those threats. Sounds to me, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a doctor of any kind, but he seems to me to be a disturbed individual, maybe mentally disturbed. Kind of talking about not doing good at the game, and so he um, made calls and stuff like that. And so yeah, they caught him, and he's going to go away to prison for a year. They also levied a big fine at him of about so many millions of yen. I think it ends up being about nearly $5 million US is the equivalent. I don't know what that's how that's going to get sorted out, but yeah, not looking too good for that guy. But at least they caught that guy, and that shouldn't be happening anymore. At least not for a while. And then two other little things here. I don't know how much you want to talk about, but there's a Dead Rising remake, so they're remaking it again. Um, so yeah, what is going on with that remake, Joe?
It's the Dead Rising Deluxe Remastered edition. So essentially, it's the first game. They've remade it once before, and I believe that was like the Frank West edition or something, or maybe I'm getting that mixed up with something else. But essentially, it's the first game. being remastered slash remade in the current like with current tech. So it's and they changed the voice actor on it. Or they're not going with back to the original voice actor, I should say, because I think they changed him a while back for one of the other things. And this is unique. I remember this game was really divisive when it first came out on 360. It was really cool for all the enemies you can have on the screen and things, but I remember just being really kind of confused with it at the time because it wasn't your usual kind of game. It was kind of like at the time it was like the new renaissance of a like a roguelike game because you had a timer. The whole point was to get to do what you could, and if you had to restart it, you kind of continued with your progression as far as character level and such.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the first games I remember trophies being a thing for, or the achievements, and I didn't quite understand what the hell the achievements were for. So like, is it just a bragging high score, or like does it get you anything? Like I really didn't know. So I just remember like but they're really creative with those because I remember grab like a parasol, uh, and just plow into a bunch of zombies, like X amount of zombies. So you took one of the umbrella parasols from the cafe or something like that, and then you just charged into a bunch, or you got one for like surfing a bunch of zombies, just like zombie walking across them. They had so many unique and silly and stupid stuff in that game. So I'm kind of curious to see how it plays because I feel like the old one is just the original game if played on 360 might just be a little too dated to really feel comfortable. But if they really nail this and like just with modern conveniences and but still have like the heart and foundation to the original game, I'm like that might be really fun. And I knew they made number two that was multiplayer, which was also equally pretty awesome. I never did play three because I think that was on the that might have been an Xbox One console. So yeah, I never got a chance to play that one. So yeah, that's just it. They're underway of remaking that, and on the last one here that they're talking about remake is remaking Assassin's Creed. Right now, they're currently saying they're remaking Assassin's Creed 4, um, Black Flag, which makes perfect sense because uh, it's kind of full circle in a way when Black Flag first came out, they're like, yeah, we made this new cool Assassin's Creed game. You get to be on this, on the ocean. You got these cool ship battles and everything. We're gonna then use that tech to make this cool game called Skull and Bones. Uh, and
Okay.
then, literally, console generations later, um, they're like, they finally come out with Skull and Bones, but that tech is no longer the same tech.
Yeah.
So now like, hey, we got this new tech here from this game called Skull and Bones. Yeah, let's go ahead and make this remake this other game called Assassin's Creed Black
Black Flag.
Flag.
Everything comes full circle. That's
Yeah.
too funny.
So that's it. Yeah, I think that'll be neat. That one is a unique. I think it's a good starting point. It's not part of the Ezio timeline or anything like that.
Okay.
But they are talking about like, hey, this isn't going to be a one-off. They're going to go ahead and start making some of the original Assassin's Creed games, and like, all right, that's fine. Because Assassin's Creed One was just like it was a really cool story, really bad gameplay. I absolutely remember just being so angry with that game because you ride a horse and you go anything beyond a slow trot, and then all of a sudden like the guards would be hunting you down, and I'm like, dude, you can move out of, like, you wasn't playing recklessly. It was like I wasn't plowing into people. You're just running through town on a horse, like just riding normally, and all of a sudden they'd start chasing you. I'm like, that game was so broken, but it was really cool and unique at the time. They really got that vibe down, and there wasn't really anything like it at the time because that going to the 360, everything's shiny and new. So getting that to be updated would be really awesome, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That was yeah. Assassin's Creed was pretty eye opening whenever it first came out. Everyone's major complaint with it was, oh, it's too short because it wasn't a very long game. Um, but I remember seeing it and being like, dang, wow, this is looks just looks. I was like, it looks so real, and it was gritty and stuff like that. Now it's probably just kind of silly, but yeah, it'll be good to see that remade as well.
Yeah, and so is that it for the news this we got currently, right?
Yeah, there's probably some other little things here, but that's all that we're gonna talk about this time.
Sweet. All right. Well, let's move on to the games we've been playing. I'm assuming since you were out in the middle of the woods, you probably weren't. Like I always say, when you bring a Switch out to a vacation, you're never gonna play your Switch. Uh,
I did
so
I did play a little bit of Tears of the Kingdom. I did play a little bit of that, just sometimes. So, um,
the real tier is the fact that you haven't beaten that game yet. It's
I don't know what's going on. I don't even know how to play that game. I have so many large gaps in time between sessions that I just know how to do basic things, and I forget how to get good weapons and stuff. I don't even know. I'm going through and getting more spaces on the map. I can't believe I haven't gotten everything on the map. So I did open up some things, but there's just like that game is good for like you start it up, you can go check box a few things, and you can put it down, and that's basically what I did whenever I did have some free time, which was pretty rare.
Yep. Well, I say you should hang it up. Go get yourself a Steam Deck, and then if you're gonna just waste time playing a forever game, go back to Elden Ring. Just seriously, just go right back to that.
I've thought about it.
If you're gonna play something that you're never gonna
It'll
beat,
be
there you go.
you may as well just make it Elden Ring, yeah. Oh, it's on the list. It's on the list, that's for
All right,
sure.
but you did actually get to complete something this last time. So what you finish here?
Yeah, as soon as I got back from my vacation, I started playing Alan Wake 2, the Night Springs DLC. Um, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. I enjoyed that pretty thoroughly. There's 3 episodes in there, and they are all pretty good. They're all pretty good. I do see kind of the criticism that it's a bit short. Um, I think that it wouldn't have to be so short if the difficulty on it was a little bit more precise. Like there's some things on it where I did die a couple times, but they give you so much ammo and stuff like that that they kind of do seem to mean for you to just run through it and just blast your way through and have a good time, and I did. Um, but I would have liked to see it a little bit tighter in places. Still, the concepts for everything in there were really good, really unique and interesting little kind of episodes that they had kind of going on there. And I kind of have a feeling that they're, have a feeling slash I'm hoping that they're putting more of their serious efforts into the Lake House DLC, and that it will be a bit more robust along like a 10-hour uh kind of ideal timeline, because I would like to see that both of these DLCs combined hopefully would add up to 15 to 20 hours. That would be what I would prefer. But we'll see, we'll see. But anyway, the stuff that was in Night Springs was really good. I think that the first one was probably my favorite, just for the silliness of it all. But the other two held up pretty well, I think, too.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, I mentioned all this before you went on your camping trip, but yeah, the first one was just a lot of fun. It was wacky, and it really hit that kind of just silly vibes that you weren't expecting. Um, they did that like amazingly. All the signs and stuff
Yeah.
in the town as you're leaving. It's like you can do it, or you go get them, and like everything's all like positive affirmation. And uh, I asked you this before, but it's like you and like when you went and you finally saw uh the quote unquote Alan Wake's brother, and he tries it. He's like, "What are you gonna do to stop me?" You chose the love option.
Yeah, I thought that was more her character. I mean, the shotgun is funnier, but like because it's I don't think it was it Alan Wake. I thought it was somebody else that asks her that. But anyway,
It's Alan Wake's brother.
okay.
It's the guy with the motorcycle. You know,
No,
his
yeah, because
essentially it's Mr. Scratch.
you
So
don't know that he's bad yet or whatever. But yeah, it's sort of a stand-in for Mr. Scratch. And he's like, "What are you gonna do to stop him?" And she's like, "With the power of love, or with a shotgun, or like she's like, oh, I have a shotgun." That's funnier, but I think the character would have
it was
said,
hilarious, dude. He's like, I wasn't expecting that. Like,
yeah. Whenever she says "with the power of love," I think he's like, okay, that's stupid, pretty much. Um, but anyway, it was good. She needed a DLC. I kind of wish that it could have all been her because I would have liked to live in her unhinged fantasy land a little bit longer. But it
I
was pretty good.
specifically like the very beginning when you finally get to you're going to the weapons cache essentially in the storage room.
That is so
Uh,
good.
I went straight to I finally went, oh, you can finally open up that door because I've been trying to figure out like because that door is has a locked emblem in the main game, and so yeah, you finally open the door. I'm like, sweet. You go down the hallway, and then it's just cracked just a little bit, and I know that's where you're supposed to go. But then I walk straight into the kitchen to quick explore. But then out of the corner of my eyes, I look by. I'm like, what the? Because you just see the racks of guns, and then yeah, quick check the kitchen, ran back in, and I'm like, this is awesome.
There we go.
And yeah, it's just she gets. They also give you decent upgrades for them right away. You know
Yeah,
the rapid fire ability for the shotgun. If I believe I know with Jesse, you have the rapid fire for the pistol. I thought you had rapid fire for the shotgun, but I honestly can't remember anymore.
you did.
But yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I just remember it being lots of fun. You can actually up the difficulty level, but it doesn't ask you in the beginning. But also after playing, like I said,
Oh,
after playing it on nightmare mode, like it was just super easy. Though I did die. Actually, I'll admit I died in the boatyard the very first confrontation because
yeah,
I kind of forgot how to dodge, and so
yeah,
I was trying to get the timing down, and all of a sudden you just like when you get clocked enough, you're like you lock up like a plank of wood. You're like, and you just fall over. And I
yeah.
was just like, really?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely died a couple times. Well, I definitely died that first time in the boatyard, and then a couple other times. I did like the gameplay of the third one the most, or
Um,
like the puzzle aspect of that one. Not to give too much spoilers away, but the thing that you were doing toward, I guess, in the main part of that was pretty interesting to me. I guess the second part of that, whatever, was pretty
so
interesting.
they Yeah, so the first, I think that by far the weakest is chapter 2,
Yeah.
Jesse's bit. It's more of a horror aspect. You're more sneaky or a little more quiet. Um but it was still fun, but I think it's because you went from a high I think it was just the pacing from episode 1 to 2. Episode 1 was high action, high speed, just loose arcadey fun. And then it
Yeah.
went to a little more subtle, sneaky, quiet, like, uh
Well, with that one,
pace.
it took too long to achieve that first primary objective because you had to keep going back to the intercom over and over again and doing different things over and over again. And I was kind of like, okay, this is whatever. And then when you finally get past it, it's like it's a little too short. You're done pretty much. Once you get past that and you do the next thing, which I did die a bunch of times before I could get through there, but that was because I was going to the left instead of the right anyway. So once I got that done, it was over pretty much, and I was like, oh, okay, well, anyway, I that was my main qualm with it.
Yeah, it was like I said, they still give you just boatloads of ammo.
Yeah,
And then the third chapter 3 was really, really well done for just messing with like the medium, I guess is the best way to play it.
yeah,
Like especially after you played the game and you realize um Tim Breaker's character, it actually made like after that I went ahead and I downloaded was it Quantum Break,
Quantum Break, yeah,
and so I have that ready to play. I just haven't had the time yet, and but I'm like, no, you've got after everything from Alan Wake and like Alan Wake 2 and the DLC. I'm like, I need to know more about Tim Breaker's other parallel life. So
yeah. Though I'm excited to hear what you have to say about that because that's I know a game you've kind of wanted to pick at for a long time. It's
Yeah, it's the only Remedy game I haven't played of since Max Payne.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it also fell under the curse that it was an Xbox One release, and I just didn't own the Xbox One console. I was overseas, and it was like it just didn't make sense. So yeah, that was one of the only like a handful of games that I actually really wanted to play from Xbox One, and I have the opportunity to. I just need to make the time to now.
yeah,
That's the only the big difference. But yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you got a chance to do that. I honestly think the Lake House is going to be like 6 hours tops
yeah,
after this because I was hoping, like I said, originally I was hoping that this would be 6 hours. Yeah, I was hoping it'd be like 2 hours per little episode. Turned out I overestimated that by quite a bit. Um, I would
yeah.
say it's like 4 hour. This Night Springs DLC is 4 hours at most, and that's if you're hunting there. But the thing is, I kind of enjoy the fact that there isn't a lot of hunting and pecking for like scavenging items. Pointless BS.
I mean,
That
they
actually made me.
do make it fun. That is the main thing that I can say is that whatever parts that drag really don't drag that bad, and it is clean, pure, simple. Each episode you can count on being about an hour and 15 minutes or so, if you take your time, and it's very digestible and just very. I had fun with that. They were definitely aiming for that. They weren't taking any chances there.
All right, and all right. So for me, I was able to uh, go ahead and on Game Pass play Still Wakes the Deep. This is that game from the Chinese Room, and they made like Dear Esther like one of the first ever walking sims. Uh,
All right.
this game they showed this a while back on a different one of the other showcases of some sort, and it just looked really awesome. It's a good tonal piece, and it's the idea like this game is kind of a lot of people are praising it really high, and so I had to kind of see what was it about. Um, and the like boilerplate story is it's you're in the North Sea outside of Scotland in 1975, and your character is on an oil rig. Uh, you slowly find it like you can slowly find out the reason for that later on through the story, but essentially as they're drilling into the and the things go terribly wrong and it becomes kind of like a eldritch horror nightmare to a
Mm.
certain extent. It's really neat in that respect. It does something different, um, and the probably the best things about it are like the visuals are really good, but for the console, um, I didn't understand why like a lot of people must be playing on PC because there was just really lacking like day one essentially. Um, there was just a few things that just didn't quite add up in my brain, and I was trying to figure this out. Like it just it looked a little off, and so what I ended up doing is I ended up keeping performance mode. Like I played between performance and quality, and then I left on motion blur, but I turned off the film grain and chromatic aberration, um, and that really helped because it just there's something just that looked really janky with it. Later on, I think Digital Foundry mentioned that there was no upscaling whatsoever on the Game Pass version
Oh, okay.
because Game Pass is kind of notorious for having features like updates come in later. Just
Yeah.
the way their stuff is set up. So if you have it on Steam, it generally always runs better. Um, and I was just like, all right, well, it still looked really good. Just didn't but I just didn't see anywhere at the time that like no one else was having any issues like I was. But once again, I just turned off film grain and chromatic aberration and left it on performance mode, and then it ran pretty solid. Um, but yeah, I mean it's just one of those things that I'm like everyone seems to be really high on this game, and I'm just like, I just don't think it's as good as people are like making this love letter to be. Um, it does a handful of things really neat. It is a shorter game, uh, and it is a simple game. Is the best way I can put it. Like but it tells a good story, and you have kind of an interesting time going through it. Just some of my logic things are just kind of like this, it just doesn't make sense, and so that kind of annoys me. Um, there is no actual combat in this game. It is very much a walking slash hiding sim. You know, you'll see these monsters that come up. So yeah, I'm going to explain the game. So slight spoilers just for the detailing about the game, but I won't say any actual story beats or like actual instances. You know, like I'll be as vague as I can. But yeah, it's essentially you see monsters. They remind you of the best way I can explain this game is like Dead Space or The Thing on an oil rig. Um, so because Dead Space was very much like they cracked a planet and then unlock the horrors of the universe, and it would turn people into monsters, and that's kind of what this is doing. The kind of like the I think they're necromorphs. Um, but in the thing, you know, it's just like when you have a human blob kind of monster just kind of crawling at you in all sorts of weird, twisted ways. But I think it's if you compare it to the thing, that's doing this game a disservice, or a thing a disservice, I should say, because the thing is such a masterpiece of like human psyche and great. It's just an overall great, awesome piece of entertainment that this does not live up to. I'm
Yeah.
like you got the right monster look, and yes, you are trapped in a area just like in the thing, but you do not have the interpersonal dilemmas and arguments and like paranoia that you did in the thing, because that's actually where really the thing really shines is, you know, who can you trust, how you can trust, and stuff like that. And it's like that's what makes it great. This is a story that just tells you beat by beat one straight path. Other than the very beginning where you got to explore, there is nothing else to explore. Really, it is as bare bones straightforward as possible. You know, uh, and certain things just didn't make sense to me. Like, uh, you need to go to this next zone, so you have to go the long way around because Lord knows you can't. You can jump, but you can't climb the most basic things unless if it's like um outlined for you in yellow.
Yeah.
And which I don't mind. Like some people really said like there's too much yellow in the game. I'm like, yeah, it's silly, but at the same time, I'm like, no, it's fine. If there's only one way to go and you're pointing it out to me, that's fine. That
Yeah.
doesn't bother me. What bothers me is I need to clearly get over this fence, and I can't go over this fence, so I have to go this stupid long way around. Where their fence is very easily like hurdle. You can hurdle it no problem,
Yeah.
and like later on, they're like, oh yeah, like you can just kick open certain your guide never thinks to kick open a fence door until someone else tells you to. Um, you know, at least you have the screwdriver. You can break the deadbolts. But the one time later on, the thing is at the towards the end that you can jump over a fence at one point. That's because they have a yellow blanket over it, and or it's like, you kidding me, right? You could have jumped fences this entire time. It makes it's just it's silly,
Yeah.
and
That
it's
that
just
is a
it's
hard thing about making games. That you have to make things. I don't know. It's just a puzzle that they want to funnel you certain ways. Then they have to do silly things like that in order to make it not break.
Yeah, I wish I had better like, you know, like this is me complaining about it, but in the end, like I walked away with this positive, so I'm just getting kind of this nagging
Mm,
at like these small bits out of the way, because honestly, that's not, you know, in the grand scheme of everything, that's not terrible. You know, there's the combat encounters as they were, is you know just hide and seek essentially, and because these are the same guys who did Amnesia, or one of the Amnesia games at least, if not so you can kind of see that foundation where like, oh yeah, there's a thing, so you have to go hide underneath a table. They have like lockers. I've never actually had to use a locker for any of the actual like they're there, so they do a really good job of making the right atmosphere and tone. You're you're walking through more places way more cautiously than you have to.
okay.
Um, and you know like that part's really good, like they really nail that tension. um just you know overall though there wasn't like there's just certain things like when interacting with other people like, yeah, you need me to get over like I'm over here and you're over there, you're safe. I'm like, there is a there's a it's like a grate that you're supposed to that you're talking to this person through, but there's a gap that you can easily shimmy yourself through. There's
Yeah.
a giant gap. Like I can hand you like a giant Amazon package through this opening. Like you cannot. You're telling me you can't crawl through that? Or they're like later on, someone's like, "I'm trapped. I can't get out of this container." I'm like, "Dude, there's a hole ripped out inside of the container. You can
Just
crawl your
go
butt
right
out there."
there. Yeah,
But
bro.
no, you got to do the you got to distract the person, distract the thing to make do the automated lift, so then you can then get me free out of the front door. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, just crawl out of the side. But once again, if these are all my only problems, that's actually not a bad thing.
Yeah. You just kind of suspend disbelief on those things.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and the only thing I kind of wish is I feel like this game should have given you more choices, like because by the end there isn't I'm only feeling like there's only a handful of people you really deal with on regular, and only a few of them I actually feel anything for. Like I don't care. Because it's kind of it's given to you at a certain pace. Um, I just don't care about these people. Like there's
Yeah.
only a handful, and that was like, and then so the final choice. Like I wish they gave you more, like I said, player agency, more choice, a little more interactions, a little more something. And so I feel this is a very good foundation to something, and it could have been like so much more.
Hmm.
Because like it has all the really good like it has a good feeling for it. And but by the set when it's all said and done, though, the game looked really good. The voice acting was really stellar because they're all speaking in like a Scottish accent, except for like one guy who I think is English. Um, the one of the big problems I had for me was I had subtitles on, but English subtitles, and they were speaking with Scottish slang, um, and it was translating. It wasn't subtitling; it was translating them to U.S. English. So I'm like, so when you're hearing something, I didn't quite make out what you said because I couldn't have the TV blaring because I play at night with the kids asleep. So like I'm like, what did they say? But then I'm reading it. I'm like, what I'm reading is not matching what they're saying, and I'm like, why? And then it wasn't until after I beat the game did I finally realize in the subtitle section they have an English UK version of
Mm.
subtitles. I'm like, you needed to start on that. That should have been your default because when you say like, even if you said something like like I instead of yes, but like it would translate it to yes, and like they talk about the weens, like the kids,
Okay.
but like
So you just
it's just like
wanted clarity rather than translation. You just want to be able to. I heard you say, like I heard you say a word, and I just don't really. I just really
I
couldn't
couldn't
make it
hear what
out.
I couldn't hear what you said, and I can figure out just because it's like you
Figure,
can
yeah. You wanted the flavor still
through
in there.
context you can realize he's talking about his children,
Yeah.
but like when he says weens, you're like, but
Weens,
if you
yeah.
can't hear what he's saying, you're like, it's like essentially I assume it's just it'd be slang for like we won, or something, but still like you can figure that out. But when I look and it just says kids, I'm like, that is not what he
Yeah.
said, and that also doesn't fit the right feel. But no, but the voice acting is pretty good.
Okay.
Um, and I liked it because it was short. If it was too long, I there's not enough
Maybe.
game there.
Yeah.
Um, and
The
so
loop would get
I
old.
know that I kind of wanted there to be more secrets, more lore, more. I wanted more from it because I enjoyed it, and uh I wanted there just to be more. But I feel like this is like a preview almost. Like if this was you'd almost feel like this is like the demo version, or you almost expect it to be like, okay, now like you'd almost like, all right, now here's the real game,
Yeah, I mean
uh
that's kind of the problem with walking sims is like they can't actually be that long because there's only so long you're gonna walk around. You have to have some kind of gameplay that's gonna tie it together, and that's why movies are only so long. TV shows are only so long, at least a piece at a time with TV shows. Even like a long TV show is what you know 12 hours for a season. Maybe whole 3 4 seasons is only like what 30 hours. That's like the beginning of a RPG of a JRPG. So it's it's got to be held together by gameplay. So if there's not enough there, then yeah, the story has to be short.
so I genuinely laughed when at the end of the game I got the trophy for a walk called Walking Simulator,
Mm.
and apparently it's because I ran less than 10 minutes throughout the entire game, like a total of 10
Okay.
minutes. I'm like, but I even though I knew the game, like at a certain point I figured there's no collectibles. And but I still would search I would still look nooks and crannies trying to find some sort of lore nugget or some sort of something. Um but honestly, for what how short it was an enjoyable experience. I would say probably for me it's like a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
But honestly, it's more like a 7.5 or something now that I found that stupid subtitle section because I was super angry. Like, why aren't you giving me proper subtitles? And then, like I said, I found that afterwards. I'm like, oh man, that would have really made it like because it takes you out of it takes you
Yeah.
out of it when you're like here I am thinking like, why did you just give me translate? Like, why couldn't you just actually? I want translations. I don't want interpretations of the subtitles. And
Yeah.
so yeah, they're like I don't know, it was just funny, looking back on it, but at the time, I was like, "Dude, this is just one more thing that's just irritating me the entire time they talk." Um, but they like I said, there's a lot of people are really high praising it because of, like, the political, climate of the time of in Scotland and stuff like that, and I'm like, "That I have no idea." I'm American, I
Yeah.
have no clue about the economy of the
And
1970 mid-70s and, I'm like, no clue,
I
so,
mean, it might be more
uh
enjoyable if you known that. Not that you should have to go do that homework or whatever, but just saying like things like that tend to be a little bit more enjoyable if you understand the background really well. But
Yeah,
that's
for
fine.
sure, and so I feel that if people are praising it just a little higher than they should be, but at the same time, I'm easily telling like if anything sounds like remotely in your wheelhouse of like yeah you like something with a spooky or a creepy atmosphere, you like the kind of like weird creatures or just you want just a weird like a neat story held in a different place, because it's an oil rig. I mean that's you can't escape, right? It answers it's like a space station or like, why the movie Alien answers the question to a or horror movie. Like, if it's in a house, leave the house. That's what you always tell yourself. You
Yeah.
can't just leave an oil rig. And so like it does stuff like that, but it's like I felt that you know, at times it could have been better paced, but you have to go at a certain pace with the walking sim.
Yeah.
Uh, and I just wanted more lore. I like the game did a good job of making me want more.
Yeah.
Um, and it didn't, because it was a good enough length that I don't feel like I wasted my time. So I felt it respected my time in that sense. So, but yeah, I don't know. That I for it's on Game Pass. They're saying they're going to give it the proper upscaling it needs later and stuff like that. But I found it to be just fine for the most part. I did play it on a 4K TV, and maybe that's another reason why it was on my Series X. Um, and so maybe there was another issue of reason. If you were playing it on the 1440p monitor or 1080p monitor,
Might look
then
better.
maybe that would look even better.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's why I quickly mentioned like the things I did to make my experience more enjoyable with that game.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, all right. That's gonna be it for what I've been playing this time around. There's some stuff that I've been currently on that I'll mention next time. But yeah, now you finally you were actually able to finish Delicious and Dungeon, right?
Yeah, there's two little things I want to talk. Well, there were two things I wanted to talk about. I did want to talk about Suzume this time, but we're kind of running long, and that deserves a bit of longer conversation. So I'm gonna leave that for next time. But yeah, we've talked about Delicious and Dungeon a couple times, but I did want to mention it kind of as it wrapped up the first season here. Um, Really good show. Really good show. Really good characters. Those are probably this is probably the strongest part of the show. I mean, it is just kind of watching the characters walk around this dungeon and eat food, which kind of leads me to the other part, is that the food aspects of this show, the manga, I'm sure source material goes into a lot of this too. But the food is really well rendered and interestingly conveyed and discovered and all that stuff. Um, and I just really like the show, pretty much from top to bottom. It actually gave me several ideas to put in my own D&D campaign. Um, some things that I was like, dang, that's actually a pretty good idea. I think I'm gonna throw that up by players at some point. Um, all that was pretty cool. I did have some criticism for it, and I can't remember what it was exactly. I think some of the stakes were a little bit low, maybe, but otherwise the animation is good. The characters are great. I do think that the pacing is pretty good as well. Uh, I think I could have used a little bit more of a serious of the villain kind of in their face a bit more, but they kind of had to deal with the red dragon for most of it. So um, really an overall really good show. I think it was probably one of the higher rated of the this season and last, or the I guess the what would be the fall and the winter season, or the winter and the spring. It's like 24 episodes. So anyway, the past two
It
seasons,
would be I consider it the spring season essentially is how it is.
the end of the
And
spring
yeah,
season, yeah,
I think that the series was good. I for me, I understand you have to have the I think Lios, the
Lyos,
main yeah, he was I just dislike the that like happy-go-lucky or easy-going airhead kind of character. I just like that
yeah,
they're usually not my favorite, and like but he's like the shonen protagonist, like out of sheer
yeah.
willpower and just gambarimasu, like like we're gonna make it through, and just because I say so, and it just happens to turn up all heads, like
Yeah, and he's dumb until he needs to be correct. And then he's like, we'll do it this way. And they're like, why is that you doing that? It's so dumb. He's like, because of this really good reason. And then you're like, oh, okay. And it's like, oh, I mean, that can be done properly and kind of to subvert your expectations of this guy being dumb. But I think they kind of reach into that bag a little bit too much.
they needed him as a walking monster, monsterpedia essentially is what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
But
I mean, but he plus he's the connection to like the story arc. We're there after his sister and stuff.
yeah,
Um, though overall, I find this series really enjoyable. They of course uh ended it at a interesting point. I mean, I find the way they created this story and the way they made everything feel uh, natural in a way, like they thought about certain things of how does a monster, like how would you prep, how would you cook, how do these things actually exist, like living armor, that whole bit being just a mollusk or a mussel or whatever, like, and you boil them like a clam. That was that was interesting, that was fun. uh it was, and it's kind of that has that D&D vibe of a bunch of dumb players doing dumb stuff and fumbling their way to success, which that's how I kind of justified, like, Lyos's like main thought. I'm like, all right, yeah, that does prove to be okay. They yeah, I can agree with you saying like maybe you wanted some more stakes or something more driven, because it very much it's almost a slice of life. Like you're
he
going at
does. Yeah.
it feels like you're going at such a slow pace. Like, do you remember why you're here? Like the time, like the clock is
Time is
ticking.
of the
You
essence on some of these things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
and
that,
then but yet you're goofing off or doing like let's spend some time prepping a bath or something. Like,
yeah. And the
yeah,
first half of the show, they do a little bit better job of kind of getting, hey, we kind of got to go every once in a while. But then after they kind of reduce the need to be in such a hurry, I'll say, then they do take a little bit more time here and there. And that's kind of more earned. I did kind of feel like the end of the first season here with episode 24 was I kind of forgot that this season was ending. And so when episode 24 came around and they were like, and that's all we wrote this time. Maybe next time we'll do all these other things. And I was like, oh yeah. So it sort of ended. It sort of ended kind of abruptly. I think they probably just had to cut it off for wherever they could fit in to where the manga, you know, would be ending at that point. There just wasn't a good point to end it at right at episode 24 in the manga. Um, but it
They're
is
literally in transition though, so that's the thing. That is,
yeah, but
I think
there's not
they
like a Christian, there's not like a climax that like where the manga hits that climax and then it drops and they can end it there for them to
yeah,
rise up
because in
again.
theory you could have done it after the major, like after the dragon fight and stuff, or
Yeah.
yeah, in theory you're they're on to their way to the next objective. But obviously that story arc lasts too darn long to fit within the 24 episode season.
Yeah.
So, um, but I'm pretty sure they've been greenlit for a new season. I
Yeah.
did think that was hilarious though, the way they cooked the summoning or her familiar that she made,
Yeah.
the little sausage familiar. I'm like, that's pretty hilarious. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean,
yeah, that's
I mean,
yeah,
like only like Jill Chuck, or however you say his name, he was kind of like not really his personality and stuff, and his background was not really delved into that much. Laios, and then I can't think of the dwarf's name, but the dwarf, those were probably the top.
Senshi.
Senshi, yeah, I guess those were like the top two characters I feel like I got to know the most. And then the girl wizard, I can't think of her name. Anyway, um,
No, Mari's the main girl they're looking after, right? I forget now.
could be.
I'm so terrible with names.
Yeah,
But yes, I
I'd
mean,
know it if I heard it, but she was also in there pretty good. So, but overall, that was like the driving force to me was this those characters were um, the most I don't know relatable, realistic sort of feeling characters that I've seen in a little while. I would say, yeah,
yeah. I mean, once again, it really does kind of fit the mold of, you and your friends playing D&D and everyone having wildly different stories and backgrounds, and be like, so what is the actual reason? Because it's like almost every other D&D campaign is like, and you start in a pub.
yeah,
It's just like,
yeah. Meet in the
and you're in the pub,
tavern.
and
Yeah,
like it's very difficult because to start, and like, but uh or like any other TV show or sitcom, like, like these people would never hang out together for any reason, but they at least give a good enough reason for this, and
yeah.
doing Senshi's like backstory, stuff that was pretty neat. Like towards the end,
Oh
like
yeah,
that was kind of like the big climax towards the end, is overcoming that story a little bit, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I honestly was glad that they they didn't stick the landing, as it were, but they did uh, leave you on a good note. Essentially, they
yeah.
didn't f it up.
Yeah, they
So
it's definitely the strength of the show is the minute to minute. Not necessarily the climax that you're kind of looking for if you were looking for that. So one of the better ones I think that I've seen in a while, and I'll be looking forward to the next season for sure.
yeah, all right. Um, I'll go ahead and keep my end a little shorter too on this. Um, so we have the main thing is, I'll just stick it with we're running a little long. One anime that we just recently saw, and that was um I just recently saw the Suicide Squad Isekai.
Mm.
They dropped like 3 episodes, and I knew this was coming because remember mentioning to you before, like with the upcoming releases. Uh, and it's pretty decent actually. I'm not a DC fan. I actually, their live DC movies, live action stuff, that is usually garbage in my opinion. It is like they fumble it in every possible way. Uh, but I've
Usually,
always been a
yeah,
fan of. I mean, I'm a fan of their animated stuff. Their animated movies were always fun, but I just don't go out of my way to really hunt it down. Now with this, it's I haven't seen any of the other Suicide Squad except for the original, like Will Smith movie, which was terrible, just absolutely terrible. And that was so bad to the point where that's why I didn't watch them when they made the second Suicide Squad or Birds of Prey. Like, um, so yeah, like I didn't watch any of the other ones following it, but I heard those were better, and anyways, yeah, this is just like you don't get much more direct than in the title. It's the Suicide Squad Isekai. It's literally them grabbed, um, released this. It's them doing their first Suicide Squad mission, right, essentially. You're like, yep, you got the bombs, check, okay. Um, you got Amanda Waller, check, and now you got an Isekai portal, and we're gonna send you through them. Okay, and it's just like, wow. The animation is really good. The I think the characters are done up well. Um, the voice acting is solid. The Joker is the only one I might have like show him in the beginning, and I kind of don't like his face. Like they give him the Joker's smile with like teeth, but then his mouth is much smaller. So it just I would almost want him to be over exaggerated anime character with like a giant like jester mouth.
Yeah,
Like
kind of like
you
in
could use anime, you could do it, but
yeah.
they made it realistic to the point
Uh,
where like he just has a giant cheek to cheek drawing on his face of a bunch of sharp teeth.
okay.
And
Huh.
so I'm like, but other than that, like they have the right vibe going for them. And without spoiling too much, because you haven't got a chance to see it, I kind of recommend you just giving it a shot because
Hmm.
you're a much bigger comic book fan than I am. Um, and I'm just kind of curious with the way you think, but they bring up some of the basic things that I think is you should bring up in an isekai. Like they do the language barrier issue, and they have fun with that. So when you the natives to the whatever their land, they have a different language, and eventually this one Argus agent, like he kind of picks up some from like some of the locals, but he picks up like really bad slang, and that's pretty funny. So it's just like, yeah, that sounds right. That's kind of accurate. Um, yeah, it's entertaining. I am looking forward to the next couple episodes. I'll say that. Like,
Okay.
these first three were solid and they're enjoyable. They have the weirdest ending that I was just not expecting. For the credits, their credit sequence has Amanda Waller doing some interesting dancing that you just don't expect her character to be animated to dance to. um,
Twerk
yeah,
twerking is it?
not quite, but
Kind of
yeah, it's
close. Okay.
business attire, like the skirt, and still dancing and busting moves. I was like, it's just really funny. So I think like I said, I was most definitely think this is a right fit, and this is can be very good, or they can really mess it up. Who knows? But right now, I'm enjoying it, and that's good. I mean, honestly, DC needs a little bit more better property and
Well,
management,
I mean,
and
yeah, they've messed up a lot of stuff. I have heard over the years that their animated section is really really good for what it is, kind of Y7 sort of animated for kids stuff. And
well, it's that teen. They really know how that teen angle. They're like stuff like the Young Justice and
yeah.
even Teen Titans before that. But Young Justice was super solid.
So
They're
I'm just thinking whoever's
yeah.
running that department over there just knows what they're doing. And they're probably just holding on to them for dear life while everything, because it's like, well, this guy, we're going to just pay him probably more than maybe other places would, and or maybe the whole team or whatever, because Marvel doesn't really do that. Um, I don't even know if Marvel really has very much in the way of animation at all, which is really
They do,
weird.
but well, they depend. That's a licensing nightmare because you got stuff like, well, you got the new X-Men, right? But I'm not sure who
Yeah.
exactly owns what rights to that. Um,
I think
yeah,
that they
X-Men
have
'97,
X
which is
Men because they bought Fox, so they have X Men again. It's only Spider Man that's on Sony Island right now, as far as I
yeah,
know.
which they
But
have a lot of like on loan leasing like agreements.
like
Uh,
that's like the most the ready to be animated is Spider Man, because everything else is like we have to draw like 50 characters or whatever. If you have any of the Avengers or X Men or
well,
whatever.
they did do the actual Wolverine and Iron Man anime back in the day, like
Oh
as
yeah,
in
okay,
like 15 years ago, maybe 10, 15 years.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
But they
they
still just they're not really utilizing that stuff. You'd think, because they had the Fantastic Four back when I was a kid, and then they had X Men when we were kids and stuff like that. They just don't really seem to be going hard in that direction. Which I would because that's how you get the kids in the door. I guess they're just thinking that their films are already doing that. So I don't know, but
Yeah,
those take
I
a long
mean
time to
that's the
make.
thing is that they're between production and budget, DC's always, even they're just the DC movies were always really good.
Yeah.
Like the Batman stuff, because once again, I'm also not a big fan of Batman, but the Batman animated stuff was always really good. They introduced Damian Wayne, rock solid entry into a handful of his movies. And when it comes to anything live action, though, like I've straight up given up on after Batman v Superman. I hadn't watched a single lick of DC content afterwards. So
The remake with the square Batman v no, this was the Justice League where they did it in square format, like the one by one format. That was pretty good. That was pretty good way to do that. And then the redo of the just
wait,
of
they did a 4x3 format for like.
that's what I mean, 4x3. They did they did 4x3 format for the Justice League movie,
Oh.
and I didn't see the original Justice League, but when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then my mom was telling me that the bad guy in that looked totally different in the original in a bad way. And then in the new one, he looks way freaking cooler. And I was like, yeah, that guy looked really freaking cool. And then there was other stuff that they did that improved that, I think. But they brought it down to 4x3 because they were spending like so much money on re-CGing so much stuff. They didn't want to spend, because everything they can cut, the extra sides they can cut saves them money. But also they said it helps with verticality or some other nonsense. And it's not nonsense. It does help with verticality of what you're watching, but it's more the money thing, I think. But that, and I talked about before about the Suicide Squad second movie it's not the best movie I've ever seen, but it was way, 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 way better than the first. It was like, okay, if you had done this first, this might be something that we could continue with. It was, it probably wouldn't blow your socks off, but it was definitely in the right direction. So I started to watch Black Adam the other day, and I was like, I got about 20, 30 minutes in, and I was just like, they're not really doing much that I really care about this. And then I didn't watch the other Shazam, but yeah.
I completely forgot there was a Flash movie until someone else, I
I
think
heard it
on.
was not great. So
Well, it was funny because I only knew about I only was remembered by it because I think on like a Reddit post or something, people were like, "Yeah, so what actors completely like tanked their career or something?" And one of the people said so and so from the Flash movie. So then I had to do a quick Google search, and I'm like, "Oh wait, oh wow, that's pretty terrible."
oh, the
Because he
guy.
got into lots of trouble. Yeah, the
Oh
actor.
yeah,
Then
dude.
they kept him for the Justice League movie or something. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
I
man,
heard
that really hurt your franchise too.
that at one point I was here listening to some podcast, and they were saying that like there was this woman with a child that he was basically hiding from people who were, I don't know what was going on with that, but that was really weird. And so also on that podcast they were saying that WB, the studio or whatever, brought him in and was like, hey, either you figure out your life very quickly, or we find a new person to play the Flash. And then all that money that you thought you were going to get is going to go bye bye. And that's right about the time that he shaped up and stopped messing around with the law and getting in, because he was getting in fights with like people in like public.
Oh,
And he,
I thought they just cut him. I thought they just axed him. I don't know.
no, I
Um,
think he did the Flash movie, but I think it
oh
was
yeah,
right
but
right around
I
that
thought all that
time.
was happening with the Flash movie. But
It
once
kind
again,
of
like I said, I have
it
no
kind of
idea about that.
was it kind of was, but I think they were like, "Hey, we're ready to get rid of you, and just because you're not worth it, you know." So I think he fixed his life up just enough to get through that. But I imagine his antics will start up again soon. But you never know. Who knows?
All right, but speaking about things that are worth it, most definitely, it just give this Suicide Squad Isekai a shot. And on that note, yeah, guys, we know it's been a little bit longer in length, but if you made it to the end, we appreciate it. This has been another Dead Pixel, technically episode 81. So yeah, good to have you back, Nick, and we will see you guys next week. Until then, what are some words of wisdom you can give the folks, Nick?
Um, always check your partner's history when uh, before discussing anime.
Okay. Until then, y'all take it easy.
Bye.